The day Adrian Kovac died, the city felt lighter. News anchors called it the end of an era. Politicians called it justice. Rival syndicates called it opportunity. And I stood at the front of the cathedral dressed in black lace, veil trembling slightly over my face. The grieving widow. The broken wife. The woman finally free from a monster. Flashbulbs popped outside the stained glass windows. Armed guards lined the marble aisles. Powerful men filled the pews, whispering in low tones that echoed like insects under the cathedral dome. They believed he was dead. They believed I was weak. They believed the throne was empty. They were wrong on all three counts. Because Adrian Kovac was sitting 3 rows behind them, watching his own funeral. 48 hours earlier, Adrian stood in his office overlooking the city. The skyline shimmered in blue glass and steel. Below it, the streets moved like veins pumping through the heart of something restless and dangerous. He didn't turn when I entered. "You're late," he said calmly. "I was verifying," I replied. I placed a thick folder on his desk. He finally looked at me. Cold eyes. Sharp cheekbones. A face that never betrayed thought. "You have a leak," I said. "Who?" "Not who. Systemic." He read silently. "Missing shipments. Shadow transfers. Weapons rerouted. Political bribes doubled without approval. Someone wasn't stealing from him. They were destabilizing him." Adrian didn't panic. He never did. He leaned back slowly. "So," he said, almost amused. "What do you suggest?" I held his gaze. "Let them think they've won." Silence. He understood immediately. "You want me dead. I want them exposed." For the first time in months, he smiled. The explosion happened 2 nights later. His armored SUV crossed the East Bridge at 11:17 p.m. A black van swerved. Impact. Chain reaction. Gas tanks ruptured. Fire engulfed steel and glass. By morning, every news channel replayed the footage. Charred wreckage. Burned body inside. Dental records confirmed identity. Adrian Kovac was officially dead. The cathedral smelled like incense and polished stone. Politicians sat in the front row, pretending sorrow. Business magnates whispered into folded hands. Captains from his syndicate avoided eye contact. And I stood at the podium. My husband, I began softly, was misunderstood. Lie. He believed in loyalty. Truth. He gave everything to protect what he built. That part was complicated. My voice trembled at precisely the right moments. Tears fell exactly once. Controlled. Measured. Behind the veil, I scanned faces. Captain Russo, already calculating territory. Marcus De Luca, smirking slightly. And Milan Kovac. Adrian's younger brother. He wasn't crying. He wasn't smiling. He was studying me. 3 rows back, disguised in grey hair and glasses, sat Adrian. Watching. Learning. Counting who stepped forward too quickly. Who moved too fast. Who reached for power before the body cooled. The funeral wasn't grief. It was surveillance. 3 days after burial, the council convened. Long oak table. 20 men. Weapons visible but untouched. Milan spoke first. We need stability. His tone was calm. Reasonable. Too reasonable. The widow, he continued, knows financial structures best. Interim oversight. Eyes turned toward me. They expected tears. Hesitation. Fragility. Instead, I nodded once. If it serves the empire. Vote passed. Unanimous. They thought I'd crumble. They thought I'd depend on them. They didn't realize I'd been reviewing accounts for 2 years. I froze offshore transfers quietly. Redirected shipments. Reassigned loyal security. Removed 3 minor captains under the excuse of budget consolidation. All while wearing black. All while appearing delicate. Underground, Adrian monitored everything through encrypted feeds. He sent one message. Impressive. I didn't respond. Because something inside me had shifted. For the first time. The power didn't feel borrowed. It felt earned. Within weeks, fractures appeared. 2 warehouses burned. 1 captain assassinated. Whispers spread that Adrian's death was staged. Milan began hosting private meetings. Too many meetings. I traced financial trails. Encrypted chats. And then I found it. The East Bridge explosion wasn't random. The explosives were internal. Access codes matched Milan's secondary authorization. I stared at the screen. Adrian suspected. I confirmed. Milan hadn't meant to kill his brother. He wanted him symbolically removed. Adrian had grown cautious in recent years. Focused on clean investments. Reduced bloodshed. Milan saw that as weakness. He wanted chaos. Expansion. Dominance through fear. The fake death had revealed traitors. But it had also revealed something else. Adrian's era was being questioned. And Milan was ready to replace it. Day 37 after the funeral. Private industrial warehouse. Council summoned. Milan at the head. He stood confidently. The empire needs decisive leadership. Before he could continue. The metal doors opened. Footsteps echoed. Adrian Kovac walked in. Alive. Gasps filled the room. Guns raised instinctively. Milan didn't flinch. I knew you'd survive, he said calmly. Adrian stopped 10 feet away. You orchestrated it, Adrian said quietly. Milan shrugged. You were becoming soft. Soft. The word hung in the air like poison. You reduced violence. Negotiated peace. Invested legally. That's not conquest. Adrian's jaw tightened. It's evolution. No, Milan replied. It's hesitation. And then. Adrian did something unexpected. He raised his weapon. Not at Milan. At me. Whose side are you on? He asked. The room froze. Because during his absence, I hadn't just maintained the empire. I'd improved it. Profits rose. Violence dropped. Alliances strengthened. The men respected me. Not feared. Respected. That unsettled him. Power had shifted. Subtly. But undeniably. I didn't reach for a weapon. I reached for the projector remote. Screens lit up. Financial charts. Expansion models. Political leverage projections. We can own the city without burning it, I said calmly. Milan laughed. You both misunderstand. Power isn't managed. It's seized. He fired a shot into the ceiling. Signal. Outside, sniper rifles clicked into position. Gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded through glass and metal. But the snipers didn't shoot Adrian. They shot Milan. He fell mid-command. Shock rippled across the warehouse. Adrian turned slowly toward me. Realization dawned. I had replaced Milan's outer security weeks ago. Anticipated his escalation. Prepared contingencies. I didn't choose between brothers. I outplayed both. Milan died believing he nearly won. Adrian survived understanding something far more terrifying. He was no longer the only strategist in the room. The war lasted 11 days. Minor skirmishes. Clean removals. No public spectacle. When it ended, the empire stood stronger. But different. Adrian remained the face. The feared name. The myth resurrected. I became the architect. The silent force behind structural change. Legal fronts expanded. Violence reduced further. Profit margins climbed. One night, on the balcony overlooking the city, Adrian stood beside me. You planned beyond me, he said. Yes. Did you ever intend to let me return? I met his eyes. That depended. On what? Whether you adapted. Silence. Wind moved through the skyline. He studied the city he once ruled alone. I died twice, he murmured. Only once publicly, I corrected. He understood. The second death was ideological. The moment he realized. Power no longer belonged to brute force. It belonged to foresight. And foresight wasn't exclusively his anymore. 6 months later, a press conference announced a new investment consortium. Clean. Legitimate. Dominant. Adrian stood at the podium. I stood slightly behind him. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked about survival. About rebirth. About resilience. They called him the man who returned from death. They called him untouchable. But in private rooms. In quiet board meetings. In strategic sessions where decisions shaped entire districts. They looked at me first. Because empires built on fear crumble eventually. Empires built on information endure. Adrian survived assassination. He survived betrayal. He survived his brother. But the most profound shift wasn't the explosion. Wasn't the funeral. Wasn't the warehouse gunfire. It was the realization that power evolves. And those who fail to evolve with it die twice. Once in body. Once in relevance. Adrian Kovac survived the first. Because I allowed it. The second. That depended on him. And I was already planning 3 moves ahead.